a long time, sexually transmitted diseases, STDs, were shameful diseases. The doctor's office became a sort of confessional where people would lower their eyes and mumble their sins. However, the magnitude of the problem and the devastating repercussions of STDs now force us to speak up about them publicly. More and more of us know someone who has died of AIDS or who has it. Today, it's estimated that 5 to 10 million people are carriers of the virus, and the disease has been noted in 138 countries worldwide. The ethical, judicial, and moral problems raised by AIDS are many and difficult to solve. Fortunately, scientifically, we are narrowing in on the virus and the disease every day. To defend itself against the countless microorganisms in the environment, the human organism is equipped with a very sophisticated defense mechanism, the immune system. Every time a microorganism enters the body, the immune system attacks it. Most of the time, it renders the invader powerless. But for the past few years, a microorganism has appeared that is able to slip by the armor of the human immune system and neutralize it, the AIDS virus. When infected by this virus, the origin of which remains unknown, our organism's defense system collapses. It becomes prone to numerous infections that will lead to death. Scientists have undertaken an unprecedented effort to counter the virus and the planet-wide epidemic it has caused. Even if there is no known cure for AIDS, its virus has divulged a few of its secrets to science. The AIDS virus contaminates bodily fluids, notably the blood of those infected, but also their sexual secretions. The virus itself is extremely vulnerable and cannot survive for long outside these fluids. It therefore cannot be transmitted by sharing everyday objects, such as toilet seats, dishes, clothing, nor by caresses, kisses, or coughs. Conversely, sexual intercourse with vaginal or anal penetration without the use of a condom is the main means of transmission of the AIDS virus. The virus can be transmitted when a contaminated person's blood, sperm, or vaginal discharges come into contact with a healthy person's vagina, penis, or anus. Condoms, which prevent the exchange of bodily fluids between two partners, are an effective means of preventing this type of transmission. The AIDS virus can also get into the organism through the use of a contaminated syringe. It then comes into direct contact with the blood. Sterile needles are essential to forestall the AIDS epidemic. Whether transmitted during intercourse or through contaminated blood, the AIDS virus reaches the bloodstream quickly. The immune system immediately tries to neutralize it by producing antibodies. These molecules normally attach themselves to viruses and bacteria, notifying their presence to the immune system's killer cells. However, the AIDS virus outmaneuvers this strategy. It manages to do so by attacking the lymphocytes, cells that play the role of generals in the battle the organism wages against foreign bodies. The AIDS virus spots a lymphocyte. It attaches itself to it. It then injects a copy of its genetic material into the nucleus of the lymphocyte. The virus's genetic material really represents the directions for its fabrication. Concealed in the lymphocytes, these directions are invulnerable to the immune system's attacks. When the lymphocytes reproduce, they pass on a copy of them to their descendants. In most people who are infected, the AIDS virus's genetic material will remain hidden away for months or even years. The antibodies the organism produces during the first attack are the only clue to the presence of the virus. Tests to detect AIDS virus infection are based on the presence of these antibodies in the blood. People having such antibodies are said to be HIV positive. Most people who are HIV positive have no symptoms for several years. However, they can unwittingly transmit through their blood or sexual secretions the virus and the lymphocytes which have incorporated the AIDS virus's genetic material. Scientists estimate that at least 70% of HIV-positive people will develop AIDS symptoms. In these people, a signal as yet unknown reactivates the virus's genetic material. The virus then forces the cells it is in to produce thousands of clone viruses. The infected cells burst, releasing new viruses which infect other cells, and so on throughout the organism. This second attack may first cause fatigue, fever, and a pronounced swelling of the ganglia. But gradually, the immune system becomes incapable of controlling the microorganisms besieging it. The patient then becomes a prey to cancers and serious infections. In some cases, the AIDS virus will infect the brain cells, causing dementia. Extremely weakened, the patient eventually dies. Researchers the world over are doing their utmost to slow down the disease. No truly effective drug has yet been found. At present, prevention is still the best way to fight the AIDS epidemic. At present, there is no specific treatment for AIDS. Physicians fight the infections and cancers it causes as best they can. However, hopes for a cure hinge on the development of a vaccine. None is currently available, but a number are already being tested on humans. Who knows? Perhaps in a few years we will be able to control AIDS as we have many other diseases. I'd like to talk to you about two other sexually transmitted diseases, gonorrhea and chlamydia. As a rule, they are not killers like AIDS, but they can have unfortunate repercussions. For some 20 known microorganisms that can affect humans, unprotected sexual intercourse presents an exceptional opportunity. The chance to enter a new host, infect it, and multiply in it. Indeed, for these microorganisms, the genitals constitute veritable entrance doors. Skin is virtually impossible to penetrate, as the cells of the epidermis are closely meshed together. But the mucous membranes that line the vagina, the cervix, the fallopian tubes, as well as the tip of the penis, the anus, and the inside of the mouth, are skinless. They provide open access to the organism. Access is made easier by the frequent presence on the mucous membranes of invisible lesions caused by friction or penetration. Gonorrhea is one of the most common sexually transmitted diseases. It is caused by a bacterium called gonococcus. Through pili, a kind of suction hair on its surface, the gonococcus fastens itself to the cells of mucous membranes and penetrates them. The infected cells die, causing local irritation, swelling, and redness. White corpuscles come to stop the infection, mix with the multiplying gonococci. This causes the formation of pus, greater swelling of the tissues, and often the onset of pain. This infectious process may bring on a number of symptoms. A woman with gonorrhea may experience abnormally heavy vaginal discharge and pain when she urinates. In men, the symptoms may include light or heavier discharge from the ureter. This discharge is a mixture of bacteria and white corpuscles. It causes a burning sensation when urinating. Fortunately, thanks to antibiotics, gonorrhea is generally easily cured when detected early enough. Penicillin treatment thus cures the majority of cases. Taken orally or by injection, this antibiotic prevents the gonococci from producing the rigid envelope that protects them. The gonococci die, and the symptoms cease. However, that particular treatment is not always effective. Over the years, colonies of penicillin-resistant gonococci have appeared. This phenomenon, increasingly frequent, has complicated the treatment of gonorrhea. Treatment of gonorrhea is made more difficult by the fact that often the disease does not produce symptoms. Without being aware of it, carriers of the infection may transmit it to their sexual partners. In cases like these, only a screening test will reveal the presence of the bacteria. The test is done by taking a sample from the wall of the cervix or the ureter. The sample fluids are then analyzed in a laboratory. Gonorrhea is not the only disease people can have without knowing it. The same is true of chlamydia, a disease that is currently reaching epidemic proportions, especially among the young. Chlamydia is a particular type of bacterium. Like a virus, it penetrates the cells of its host in order to multiply. Transmitted during sexual intercourse, chlamydia first infects the cervix in women and the ureter in men. In women, the infection can cause vaginal discharge, abnormal bleeding, pain, or a burning sensation when urinating. In men, it causes a discharge from the penis or pain when urinating. Once diagnosed, chlamydia is easily treated with antibiotics. However, in 3/4 of the people afflicted, chlamydia does not present any symptoms. A person may unknowingly carry it for weeks, even years, during which time they may transmit it to others. This insidious infection can have a serious consequence for women: sterility. First localized in the cervix, the infection can spread to the walls of the uterus, causing endometriosis. It can then spread to the fallopian tubes, causing salpingitis, which may be accompanied by pain in varying degrees. After contracting salpingitis, the tubes may be completely obstructed by accumulated pus and scar formation. The spermatozoa are incapable of traveling from the uterus to the ovary to fertilize the ovum. The woman is then sterile. Epidemiologists believe that chlamydia infection is responsible for most cases of sterility among women today. But sterility can be caused by gonorrhea as well. Since chlamydia does not usually have any symptoms, the only way to detect it is through testing. Generalization of this test and of the use of condoms will perhaps forestall the constant rise in cases of chlamydia infection and the cases of sterility associated with it. In several countries of the world, chlamydia infection is the most common of all the sexually transmitted diseases. In addition to sterility, it can also cause another kind of complication: eye infections in newborn infants. When a woman with chlamydia infection gives birth, the infant may be contaminated as he or she passes through the cervix of the uterus. That is why in some developed nations, antibiotic drops are put into newborn babies' eyes at birth. We will never get rid of STDs completely. They are linked to a fundamental and essential human behavior. Abstinence may be the ideal method of prevention, but it certainly isn't very popular. Concluding my tour of diseases available on the market of STDs, there are two others I should mention, as their seriousness should not be underestimated: herpes and condyloma. While most sexually transmitted diseases are successfully treated today, one of them still resists the whole arsenal of modern treatments. This disease, although it does not entail serious complications, can have painful psychological effects since it lasts a person's entire life. That disease is genital herpes. Two closely linked viruses may be the cause of genital herpes. The viruses are transmitted during unprotected sexual intercourse with a person who is infected. One or the other of these viruses enters the mucous membranes of the genitals of the man or the woman. They then multiply rapidly, causing the cells to burst and release new viruses. This initial infection causes very unpleasant symptoms. Painful blisters appear on the outer genitalia. Fever, stiffness, and headaches also occur. These symptoms may last for 3 weeks before subsiding. The blisters finally dry up and heal. Then the virus enters the nerve endings next to the cells it has already infected. It travels up the nerve endings to the nerve ganglia located on either side of the spinal cord, where it becomes dormant. In 1 person out of 3, the virus may stay in this dormant state indefinitely and never reappear. But the other 2/3 of the victims periodically experience recurrences of the disease. During such recurrences, the virus leaves the ganglia and migrates along the nerve endings toward the mucous membranes of the genitalia. It infects the mucous membranes anew by multiplying. The recurrences are less severe than the initial attack. They occur anywhere from between once a month to once a year. Scientists do not know what triggers them, but some factors seem to encourage them. For example, too much exposure to the sun, pants worn too tightly, stress, and menstruation. People who suffer from herpes can learn to stave off the recurrences by taking these factors into account. A drug, acyclovir, helps reduce the intensity and frequency of the recurrences. During relapses, herpes sufferers must avoid touching their open wounds, since they might spread the infection to other parts of their body. They must also avoid having sexual intercourse, as they might transmit the disease to their partner. While herpes tends to spread through the population slowly, another sexually transmitted viral infection spreads very rapidly: condyloma acuminatum, or genital warts. Condyloma acuminatum are small wart-like growths that can appear on the outer and inner walls of the genitalia, the anus, and even in the mouth. Rough or smooth, in clusters or isolated, they may look like the head of a pin, a rooster's comb, or a cauliflower. The viruses responsible for condyloma, called papillomaviruses, are transmitted during sexual contact with a person who carries them. The viruses enter the cells of the mucous membranes of the genitalia. They may remain inactive for several months before becoming manifest. After this period of incubation, they begin to reproduce, causing the proliferation of condyloma, that is, small warts. Papillomaviruses also cause the common wart. If a person has common warts on his hands, the contamination of his genital or anal mucous membranes is exceptionally possible. This would explain the presence of condyloma in children who have never had sexual contact. Condyloma can be destroyed by a chemical product, podophyllin. Cold can also be used with liquid nitrogen. The most recalcitrant cases require the use of lasers, which burn the condyloma in depth. However, the treatments must be repeated in order to completely eliminate the papillomaviruses from the mucous membranes. Condyloma acuminatum must be treated quickly. Though they are seldom painful, they are ugly and can cause considerable discomfort during sexual intercourse, for instance. But there is worse. According to several studies, if left untreated, condyloma, especially those present on the cervix, would considerably increase the risks of developing a cancer of the cervix. By having tests done on a regular basis, such as the Pap test, this serious complication of condyloma can be avoided. To prevent the spreading of sexually transmitted diseases, sexually active people have two means at their disposal: prevention through the use of condoms and early detection through regular medical checkups. No wonder the condom has made such a comeback. Everywhere in the world, major publicity campaigns encourage people to use condoms. But do you?